All right, good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order. 7:02 p.m. This is the October 25th regular meeting of the Oak Park Board of Education. Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Corcoran. Here. Elvin.
Here.
Goodfriend.
Trustee Goodfriend, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Present.
Hoda.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Lunkins.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Tonight, pursuant to the declaration of a state of emergency by the Oak Park City Council, we do have 3 members that are participating remotely. In conjunction with the Open Meetings Act, I'll ask each of those members to please state their city and state where they're located for the record, and I'll start with Trustee Smith.
Oak Park, Michigan.
Thank you. Trustee Goodfriend.
Oak Park, Michigan.
Thank you. And Trustee Lunkins.
Oak Park, Michigan.
Okay, we move on to our recitation of the district's mission, vision, and beliefs. And I'm going to ask for unanimous consent for us to replace that tonight with a reading of our Code of Ethics. Is there any objection to that? The Code of Ethics is on the same sheet that we have with the mission and vision, but on the back it has the Code of Ethics. Is there any objection from the board to reading the Code of Ethics tonight?
None. None.
All right, seeing none, why don't we start with Trustee Klein with number 1?
I gotta find it, Trustee. Why don't you come back to me?
Okay, Trustee, why don't we start with Trustee Smith then, number 1?
Yes. As a member of the board, I will promote the best interests of the school district as a whole and will adhere to the following ethical standards and principles. I will represent all school districts' constituents honestly and equally and refuse to surrender my responsibilities to any partisan principle, group, or interest.
All right, thank you. Trustee Goodfriend, can you please read number 2?
I'll pass.
Trustee Lunkins, can you read number 2, please?
We're reading the brief statements.
We're reading the Code of Ethics.
The other side.
I don't have anything on the other side, so I'll pass.
Okay, Trustee Klein, can you please read number 2 of our Code of Ethics?
Working on it.
All right, Trustee Elvin, can you please read number 2 of our Code of Ethics?
I will avoid any conflict of interest prohibited by law or appearance of such that could result from my position and will not use my membership on the board for personal gain or contrary to the interests of the school district.
Thank you. Trustee Corcoran, do you have number 3?
No, I do not.
Okay, I'll read number 3. I will recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public meeting of the board.
Smith.
Trustee Smith, do you want to do number 4, please?
I can do 4, 5, and 6 if you want me to.
Let's go ahead with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I will take no private action that might compromise the board or administration and will respect the confidentiality of privileged information.
Okay. Did you want to do 5 and 6 as well?
Sure, I'll be glad to. I will abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. Number 6, I will encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and will participate in board discussions in an open, honest, and respectful manner, honoring differences of opinion or perspective.
Thank you. Trustee Elvin, can you do 7, 8, and 9, please?
I will
Yes, sir.
therefore attend and actively participate in school board meetings. I will become sufficiently informed about and prepared to act on the specific issues before the board. I will respectfully listen to those who communicate with the board, seeking to understand their views while recognizing my responsibility to represent the interests of the entire school community.
Okay, and I'll do the balance then. Number 10, I will strive for a positive working relationship with the superintendent, respecting the superintendent's authority to advise the board, implement board policy, and administer the school district. Number 11, I will model continuous learning and work to ensure good governance by taking advantage of board member development opportunities, including those sponsored by state and national school board associations, and encourage my fellow board members to do the same. Number 12, I will strive to keep the board focused on its primary work of clarifying the school district purpose, directions and goals, and monitoring district performance. I think it's important for us to review this code of ethics publicly, both so that all of us on the board can be reminded, and those who didn't have that ready, please make sure you access those and review them. And also so the community understands the code of ethics with which we govern ourselves and which we've all committed to following. We have had in the past some incidents where we had to censure board members for not following this code of ethics. We will continue to hold board members accountable to that. And so we need to make sure that we keep that in the forefront of our mind as we continue to do our business on behalf of the community. We'll move on now to our approval of agenda and order of business. Is there any board member that wishes to change the agenda?
Yeah, I have.
Seeing none, I'll ask for unanimous consent for the approval of the agenda. All in favor, is there anyone opposed to unanimous consent to approval of the agenda?
I actually wanted to speak on the personnel action report. So is that now or later?
It's later.
So, no, but we're going to keep, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Oh, no changes.
Okay. So once again, I'll ask for unanimous consent to approve the agenda. Seeing no objection, there is unanimous consent to approve the agenda, and we'll move to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. One is the approval of minutes. There's also approval of the personnel actions, and then the financial statements. Trustee Corcoran is asking to remove personnel actions from the consent agenda, so that'll move to action item
7C.
7C.
The financial statement also, I had a question on, so will I move that as well?
Okay, that'll move to 7D. So is there any objection to keeping the approval of minutes on the consent agenda? All right, so I'll ask for a voice vote on the consent agenda. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved, and we move on to our presentations. And we start with a presentation from our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, Ms. Baptiste.
Can everybody hear me?
No.
Let's go ahead and look at the agenda. I'm not next. Okay, it's the financial statement.
So we move the personnel action reports and the financial statement into action items because there was an objection.
Got it.
But if you'd like, we can go ahead with some of the reports before we come. You got it?
How about now?
I think maybe if you move the microphone closer to you, that'll.
On at all, that's the thing.
When you were tapping on it, I was able to. No.
Yes. Hello? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
The one that was tapping.
Okay. Okay, I think this one works now. All right, awesome, I'm ready. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm going to be sharing my screen. And putting this document into presentation mode. All right, so this evening, what I'll be presenting is our Oak Park Schools Benchmark Assessment Data Review. And so what we have is our table of contents, which will have the introduction or the context for our benchmark assessments, the overall presentation, which will involve a review of our district-wide data and our response to the data, and also our conclusion, our next steps and beyond, and of course, an opportunity for questions. So introduction, As I said, background context and considerations. So in 2017, the district adopted the NWEA. And at that time, up until last year, the assessment provided detailed actionable data about where each student was on their unique learning path. The platform, what it does is it adapts to a student's responses as they take the test. And so if they answer a question correctly and the test presents a more challenging item, then there will be more challenging question items. If they miss a question, then the assessment would offer a more simpler item. What we found was we were in need of not only a benchmark assessment, but a platform that also offered intervention strategies and tools for teachers. And so this year we made the adoption, I should say, to iReady. And so what that platform does for us is it's a robust online platform that offers computer adaptive diagnostic, personalized data-driven instruction on foundational skills. It's standards-based practice, and it also offers a common core readiness screener. So it's used nationwide, like NWA as well. It assesses an individual student's skills across multiple grade levels to pinpoint gaps. And that's where there's a difference in this particular benchmark assessment. We now get a lot more details on grade level data and information to better support our students. It also gives teachers an action plan and automatically delivers differentiated online instruction to students. The intervention platform is K-8. And why we went ahead and made that adoption was we found that even students in grades 9 through 12 with the NWEA were performing at or below grade level. And so we wanted to have intervention strategies and resources to best support teachers with their instruction and students with their academic development. And so this year, we're going to be assessing students 3 times this year, 1 time in the fall, K through 12, in the winter, which will be around January, February, and then again in around April, May. So that will be the spring assessment. We had district-wide participation at 87%. Within the state of Michigan, when we report benchmark assessment data, we are reporting K-8 data. And for that reason, we ask for our teachers and we ask for everybody to engage in 95% participation, but we really need it for K-8 because that is what's reported to the state. Moving forward, we will definitely be asking as many teachers as possible and students to please complete the platform even in grades 9 through 12 so that we increase our overall district participation rate to 95%, not only for those in grades K-8. And so this is just showing you that across the board, for K-8, we met our participation at 95% or above. And NOVA was very close. We do have to take into consideration student absences. And there's a variety of reasons why we don't always have the participation rate where we want it to be, but we did meet at K-8. So I don't mean to go back to this slide, but I do want you to take into consideration that when we're going to be discussing these data points, we're talking about K-12. And so it is important to note those participation rates K-12 are not fully at 95%, but it overall pulls our district data in different directions because we haven't had the participation rate where we would like it to be. So take that into consideration as we do a deeper dive. Okay, so the platform assesses students for English language arts and also math in grades K-12. So here we go. What we see here is across the board in all of our schools where our students performed within each school. The green represents on grade level or above. The yellow represents 1 grade level below, and the red represents 2 or more grade levels below. What this data offered us was the opportunity to see the percentages of students at each school, including NOVA, our alternative education program, and all of our elementary, middle, and high school programs. But even more importantly, what we really wanted to know and why we made the adoption for this platform was we need to know the overall number of students, not just the percentage. This gives us more detailed information about who those students are, what class they're located in, how many students are at grade level in every single school building. We have the data and the information to pinpoint and strategize what we need to be doing for our students. So you'll see that for the first round of assessments, the number of students on or below grade, on or at grade level, one level below and two levels below. We also really appreciate, and I'll get into more detail about this when we talk about MTSS and our tiered intervention supports. The triangle represents the delivery of supports. So the tiered delivery of support. So that triangle with the red this means that our students are at risk. Tier 2, which is yellow, our students, it's 26% who are also at risk of being one grade level below. And then Tier 1 are our students, we have 9% who are at grade level or above. And then really thinking about the intervention strategies, when we think about Tier 1, that's whole group classroom instruction. When we look at Tier 2, that's targeted intervention, that's small group instruction. When we look at Tier 3, that's one-on-one targeted support and intervention, and a lot more intensive interventions at Tier 3. So think green Tier 1, whole group, yellow Tier 2, small group intervention, and then red Tier 3, one-on-one support. So that's for reading. Now, we also wanted to know more information about our district-wide placement by domain in reading. And so the assessment assesses students in phonological awareness, phonics, high-frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension in two forms, literature, but also informational text. And this gives us more information where students are placed K-12. So it makes sense that phonological awareness, we have 84%. You should have phonological awareness by the time you're in high school, by the time you're in middle school. So that those numbers will be a lot higher. What we really want to focus on as we get into phonics, of course, especially at the elementary level, high frequency words, vocabulary, the last three, vocabulary and reading comprehension for either literature or informational text is when we really get into standards-based learning and writing, not only for ELA in terms of reading, but also for writing. Now we have the same configuration for math. We're able to see what percentage of students are at grade level or above, one grade level or below, or two or more grade levels or below. And what this then does, so now what this revealed to me as looking at this is, okay, well, what is it that we can do for math instruction to bring our both ELA and math, but we see that there's some reflection of student growth in ELA across the board. Well, what's happening for math? And the domains, again, we're able to better target our students. We're better able to see, okay, if there are 15 students who are at grade level at Key Elementary, and there are 187 who are one grade level below, what that tells us is there's an opportunity to move a significant number of students, not just percentage of students, but number of actual students to be at grade level. And then when we look at that triangle, well, what are those targeted supports that we're going to be implementing for whole group instruction, small group instruction, and targeted supports? And again, we have the district-wide placement by domain in math. And so in math, the four areas are numbers and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement and data, and geometry. And we get to see who's at what level, what supports do they need instructionally, and across the board, I'll stay on this slide, but across the board, just the different strategies that we can be utilizing instructionally, programmatically, and pedagogically, which again brings us to our response to our data. And so utilizing the MTSS framework and also accelerated learning, though that is our primary response, in addition to taking the moment to not shy away from the data, but look at the data as a community. And so before coming before you today, I've met with building principals during their November 2nd professional development. Each school has targeted supports in place to review their data, to respond to their data, to come up with action plans around their data. We have a district-wide MTSS team, and that's restructuring and coming back for this fall. What are we going to be doing for our MTSS strategies, and how are we implementing accelerated learning? So here we go. When I talked about MTSS, I just wanted to include, this is not in the original slide, draft slide, but I really thought it was important as I was reviewing, I thought it was important to include more definition as to when we're talking about MTSS, what exactly are we talking about? And so I'm hovering my mouse on this area here, this triangle here. The tiered delivery system is really where we're having a deep dive conversation about MTSS. We do have team-based leaders at the district level, but also within each school building, there is an MTSS team where together we make continuous data-based decision-making, including through the MTSS team, making the decision to adopt iReady as a new assessment platform, engaging in comprehensive screening and assessment systems and a review of that, which is in part what helped us to bring about our social emotional learning screeners last year, which we'll also be implementing for this year. And then finally, making a selection and implementation of instruction, interventions, and supports. And so K-12, a lot of the work that they engaged in last year as the MTSS team was really identifying what are going to be some of those instructional supports for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And one of the responses to the data, we'll also get into this in slides coming up, is we don't have the capacity to have so many students who need Tier 3 supports. That's one-on-one instruction. We don't have enough, no school community has that type of support to provide one-on-one instruction for that many students. What we really need are supports within whole group instruction. What are our Tier 1 supports? And also thinking of, when I talk about the selection and implementation of instruction and intervention, with the number of students who we have at Tier 3, we do have to leverage and consider what are some Tier 2 supports that can actually be used in Tier 1 whole group instruction to better support a wider array of students. The other thing we talk about and really need to consider when we're talking about MTSS is one branch of MTSS is academics, but it's also attendance, behavior, and social emotional learning. The use of our universal screeners, the efficacy of how we're looking at our data, and equity. Who's getting what, the frequency of this, why, what resources are needed, what training is needed for our staff and our students and families. So when I'm talking about MTSS, these are the things that I'm referring to specifically. So again, the key focus for our conversation today is on our benchmark assessment data, which allows us to take a deeper dive into what types of intervention delivery systems will need to be putting in place. And in a typical school district where you have 80% of your students are receiving Tier 1 or whole group instruction, you'll have around approximately 15% who are receiving secondary prevention or small group intervention, and then you'll have 3 to 5% of students who are at the tertiary level or receiving those targeted supports. And the triangle, that's the little sliver that's right in the middle, is students with disabilities, English language learners, and gifted and talented students, because they're also a part of your student population, and there's targeted supports that need to be in consideration for those students. It's not on here, but also our early learners would also need to be in consideration of the supports that we need to put in place by the time they get to kindergarten. What are we doing to make sure that they are as on grade level and on track for development as possible? And what are we doing for our teachers to train them? So that's in a typical model. This slide for me is really important because whether we're talking about reading or math or attendance or social emotional learning, today we're talking about our academics and our benchmark assessments, but we need to invert the triangle. That's really, our triangle right now looks like it's the upside down portion of the triangle is what we need to bring that to, literally flip the triangle around. At this time, we have over 65% of students who are receiving, who are in need of receiving Tier 3 supports. But the reality of all of that is we don't have enough teachers to teach, that many kids one-on-one supports. So with our teaching staff, what are those reading interventions that are Tier 2 and Tier 1 to better support even students who are Tier 3? And then something else to consider is when we met with the principals, this got brought up by Dr. Hitchcock, a point that she made was even at the very tip of this triangle, there are students, and this is what our buildings are engaging in looking at their data, and there are students who may be 3 or more grade levels below. And so what the assessment is capturing are students who are 2 or more grade levels below. but we may have students due to the pandemic that are 3 or more grade levels below. And that type of data and information is at the school building level to target even those students where, yes, you need tier 3 supports, but you may need even more than tier 3 supports. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are a special needs student. There's additional supports that you need to bring you up to speed. That's in both reading and math. And so one of the strategies that we just came right back into the school year with was accelerated learning. It's a model that's being implemented throughout the state of Michigan. And what it does is it keeps students moving forward on their intended grade level trajectories by strategically preparing them for success within their grade level content. So it doesn't mean that you're choosing not to teach what they learned from the last year or what's upcoming. It's what's at grade level that is most important, and what can you pull from the previous year that's relevant, that the skills that they need because they may not have gotten that dosage of instruction when needed due to the pandemic. And so acceleration focuses on teaching really primarily what must be learned at any given level, instead of trying to teach everything that a student didn't learn in a previous grade. Because what ends up happening is if we only focus on what they didn't learn, then what's needed for at grade level isn't addressed. There's not a focus on that. And so one of the things that we did this year strategically was we had our content area leaders, our grade area leaders, who are teacher leaders, alongside our instructional coaches, our Title I teachers, and our early childhood literacy coaches, or LEO coaches, come together and do curriculum planning for our first units, our first semester of this year. And then they turnkeyed that curriculum planning to staff, so that staff would come together and collaborate on what they were going to be doing to implement accelerated learning, not only at the start of the school year, but also for the remainder of the year. This is a strategy that we're going to be engaging in. And when I mention professional learning communities and the work that they're doing, it's around this accelerated learning to support what many are referring to as learning loss. So it requires our teachers to identify crucial content that they need to teach and that students need to learn so that students can access current grade level material. So that's really important when teachers come together to identify the gaps, but not only that, what exactly needs to be taught to help students progress as they move throughout the school year. So in conclusion, some of our next steps and beyond, our teaching and learning department goals for 2021 are overarching, and they're aligned to the strategic plan under academics. We're focusing on the Michigan continuous improvement process, district-wide professional learning opportunities, and offering viable curriculum for all, reviewing and making sure that there's viable curriculum for all. So I'll go to the next slide. I just gave just a quick overview of MyKIP, whole child data development, and systems thinkings. When I'm referring to MyKIP, these are some of the processes that are set forth by the state of Michigan, where you're evaluating programs, you're assessing student needs, you're planning alongside building leaders and teachers, you're doing the implementation process and seeking parent input, you're monitoring what's happening with not only the data, but thinking more than the data, the kids. When we look at whole child data, whole child developmental data, we're also considering health education, physical education, nutrition, health services, counseling services, social emotional climate, physical environment of the student's classroom and overall school community, the employee wellness of our staff, family engagement, and really thinking of our systems level thinking. What are the processes and who are the people who are working together on common goals and desired results? And so today, what I spoke of primarily was the MTSS process and what's happening within our school buildings, especially, even before November 2nd, our August PD, the focus was on accelerated learning. Our October PD, the focus was on formative assessments. And now that we've adopted the iReady platform, how to look at the data, utilize the data, access the data, but also share this information with families. And now our November 2nd data, our November 2nd professional development day, now that everybody has completed these assessments, we've already gone through formative assessment and accelerated learning buildings. Let's take a deep dive and look at your building level data by grade level. And so when we think about continuous improvement strategies, we really want, the way that these goals will become actionable is, all right, well, let's take some next steps. The MyKIP process requires that we submit goals to the state. So the goal that we submitted last year was on social emotional learning, and we implemented universal screeners and having students complete social emotional learning screeners. The next step is implementing a district-wide academic goal. So when we're doing that, using the Michigan continuous improvement process and the templates that they've provided to us by the state, meetings with principals, building level instructional coaches to support in the development of not only the district-wide goal, but making sure that it's aligned to the academic goal for the strategic plan. We also want to continue to align, as I said, to the strategic plan, but the next step with that is continuing to build coherence. So what's happening with our MTSS teams? Are we meeting? When we come together, what data are we looking at? Are we only looking at academic data? We need to look at social emotional data. We need to look at attendance data. We need to look at behavioral data, because it's not only just the academic data. There's more to the story for a student. It's not just how they performed on ELA and math. There's a story behind that. Do we know our kids? And the strategies to best support them and how they learn best. Our instructional leadership teams, which are within our school buildings, and then our teacher leaders who are fierce and just amazing, our coaches, our department leads, our Title I teachers, our English language learner teachers, and even teachers who are not necessarily with a title of being a teacher leader, teachers who come together across a grade band for professional learning communities, when they get together and look at assessments together, when they get together and really talk about how their students are doing and what's happening with homework, or even just checking in, what's happening with your students, what strategies are you using to best support them. Engaging in a curriculum review process, really taking into consideration our data-based curriculum decisions for all resources that we purchase, and the stakeholder engagement around that. Are we engaging our parents around the curriculum review process? If we have a curriculum that's going to be expiring, are our teachers getting the opportunity to pilot resources, have a conversation about the resources, and juxtapose that with our student data? So we're not just buying curriculum just to buy curriculum. This is really going to help support tier 1 and tier 2 intervention strategies that we need in our whole group instruction environment. And then finally, community engagement, fostering opportunities, as I said, for families to participate in data decision-making. So the iReady assessment, one of the great things that it offers is there's a access for parents to be able to see how their students are doing, but also for teachers when they meet with parents in conferences, or even when they meet with students, to explain, this is the domain. This is where, if you focus on phonics in this way, it's going to help you in your high frequency words. It's going to help you develop reading skills in this way. So mom, dad, aunt, grandma, if you have your child read 15 to 20 minutes informational text, this is an example of what informational text is. You can actually share resources with families even through the platform. So downloading resources and sharing with families. So when I'm talking about community engagement, I'm referring to that as well, like how we use the data that we have, how we communicate about the resources that we have with our families, and educating one another, because families can let you know a great deal about, this is how my child learns best, but what's the common language that we have or common data that we can use to talk about that. And that is pretty much it. I just wanted to share our district-wide professional learning opportunities, that there's a timeline, and where we are now is November. We offer 4 district-wide professional learning opportunities. I already covered what the first 3 were. We know that in March, we're going to have data action and review planning, and ideally end of year curriculum planning to gear up for the upcoming school year. And then of course, social emotional learning strategies, because we know that our students will be engaging in testing and the end of the year around that time. So what are some strategies that we'll be engaging in as a community to best support our students? And I believe that that's the last slide. And I'm kitschy. So I just saw a picture of the globe, or not the globe, but a map. I said, okay, we're going places. Let's go to the right places. It's Oak Park Schools, and it's the Oak Park Advantage. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Do any board members have questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, we'll go trustee Klein, then trustee Smith, and trustee Elvin.
Thank you, Cassandra, and thank you also for sending that around to us in advance. It was it was great being able to go over it myself, and it was also even better hearing it from you as you discussed each piece individually. It's pretty thorough. I was just looking at the bar graphs that you discussed a little earlier on, and I noticed that the kids do much better in terms of like standard spoken language. And then when you get into vocabulary and reading comprehension, I was wondering if those are causally correlated or just incidentally correlated.
So I believe there's cause in almost everything. So I'm not going to go with incidental, but I will say that that is something that across the board that was also picked up last year, that there needs to be a focus on vocabulary. So even at the high school, every single day there was a word of the day. Staff members used that vocabulary word. At the middle school, they got into etymology. Let's break down this word. What's the meaning of this word? Now it helps you to better understand when you see the beginning of the word that has this or the end of the word that has that. You can get into word study. At the elementary level, high frequency words, like that was a targeted focus last year, and I know it'll continue into this year, is whether it's causal or incidental, it's happening. So it's something that across the board, these are goals that they're implementing, and not just goals, but like action steps that are being taken within school communities of how do we get students to, I'm taking my mask off, how do we get students to engage in high frequency words, but also vocabulary and word study so they can better increase their word usage and ability to make connections from phonics, phonemic awareness, putting their words together, writing the words, defining the words, using them in sentences.
Do we have like book contests that go on regularly, reading?
We have some, it's more at the classroom level. And I know that we do have classes of teachers that get together and do competitions across grade level. What's your favorite book of the month? And also I have heard through content area leaders at the secondary level for ELA engaging in book competitions and reading competitions where students are able to just showcase that they've increased how much they read or what book they're reading, or if they're doing a book study together. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Smith?
Yes. Ms. Baptiste, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. You asked, you actually addressed my question in regards to the impact, the potential impact of the, this COVID era on our children and their progression and, their math and reading. I consider myself a stakeholder, as should every member in our school district. I believe in, the education of our children, both internally and externally. I delve into social action and uplifting events that are addressed and geared to our children. I believe that is the business of the school district, that that children are our business, at every level. This is my charge, that I would like for you and Dr. Hitchcock to let me know where I can be of value add, where I can be, of most significant, of value add, and let me know what I need, what I can do as a board member to help, progress our children. I'm not going to bog anybody down with any unnecessary asks or requests, because we have a job to grow and develop our children, and we'll get there. And I know we're going to have the win. We're going to go for we're going to make that win. We're going to win. I'm going for the W here. So just let me know where you can utilize me at any place, anywhere. If you need me, boots on the ground, jumping in, getting in with parents, door to door, let me know. Whatever that Mr. Smith can do. That's what this should be about. And like I said, I'm just really totally engaged, and I just want the best. I want the success, the overall success for our district as a team, as a unit, as an individual. And I just want to say that I'm passionate about this, but I want our children to succeed. Just let me know where you need me at, and I'm there. Thank you.
You got it.
All right, thank you. Trustee Alvin?
Thank you for the presentation. To what extent, or do we know, does the accelerated learning have an impact on test scores and more importantly, like college entry exams to what extent does that have an impact on any of those?
So I'm not going to be able to give you a number impact statement, but I will say this, at least being able to focus on grade level standards within that grade level itself is really key and important. And what has happened in the past without the pandemic, even without the pandemic, is, oh, well, they didn't learn, they're in the 4th grade, or better yet, they're in the 3rd grade. And I'm not saying this is just Oak Park, just in general. Students are in the 3rd grade, I'm assessing them and I see that they're not at 3rd grade level. I need to focus on 1st grade and 2nd grade, and then 3rd grade content doesn't even get covered. But what does the child get tested in? 3rd grade. So now, at that particular grade level, and they never receive the exposure of what we don't teach to the test, we're teaching kids, but they're not getting the exposure of what is developmentally appropriate and standards-based appropriate for their grade level. So what accelerated learning helps us to do is, we're not doing 1st grade, 2nd. We need to cover 1st and 2nd grade certain concepts, but you can't not cover 3rd grade concepts and skills that the students are going to be held responsible for by the end of the year when they do take that test. Or fast forward, college and career readiness, not being able to read, write, and do basic math functions, but perhaps you get a scholarship somewhere because you're an athlete. You get that scholarship, but you're not able to maintain the academic portion of what you need. And now, how do you continue? So I don't have the numbers, but I will say that what it does is it keeps the eye on the prize of, at this particular grade level, we are responsible for covering that material. How are we going to offer differentiation, small group instruction, and resources and exposure to our students for that grade level? I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Trustee Corcoran?
Yes. I missed that piece. Thank you very much for sharing this data with us. I had a few questions. Some of them were already answered, but that one question, of course, is the participation of the parents, because of course that is, very, very important, because when your child comes home, you do want to read, before bedtime, or have them, read a couple of books, associated to what they're learning in school. The question that I have is, if they are 2 to 3 or 4 grades behind, and I'm speaking in the high school level, would that impact the credit to what grade they're in now? And if so, I see what our strategy is. I see the benchmark, but if we do not reach that benchmark by the appropriate time for graduation day, are these children going to end up at Nova because of credit recovery, or because it just seems like a very slippery slope going down? So I was just wondering, would that, lead them to credit recovery more so than, teaching, to getting them, to their grade level? Like, is that, yeah. So it's tough for me. I'm sorry. It's kind of tough because, education is very, very important to succeed, in life. You have to have it, as you just spoke. You can have the academics, but if you don't have, you can have the athleticism, but if you don't have the academics, you won't even be able to do an impromptu in college the first year. So that's why I was just asking that question.
So this is a conversation that is literally being had now in real time. I just want to make sure that the question that you have, that I'm clear on the question, which is that with students being many grade levels below, 3 or more grade levels below, how does that impact with their ability to gain course credit? And then does this then lead to more credit recovery for students. So the answer to that is that's literally what the secondary MCSS team for grades 9 through 12 and really 6 through 12, that's a focus of, okay, if a student is 3 or more grade levels below, they may show a significant amount of growth, which if they move 1 grade level, that is a significant amount of growth, but it's still not at grade level. And so those supports to help the student to the best of our ability, knowing that we still will have to offer opportunities like credit recovery. It's very much needed, but when does that happen? And what kinds of targeted counseling supports are in place? And looking at those other data points that I mentioned, not only academic data, but what relationships do the students have with counselors, social workers, teachers who they value and respect, you know, to motivate them and to get the resources that they need, differentiation and tutoring opportunities to help them so that they're not slipping behind, knowing that they're behind. So I do know that at the high school, at Nova, tutoring is up and coming, and same thing for K-8. K-8 has a little bit more targeted focus on where they are with standards-based coursework, whereas at the high school, you can see if the student is on track to receive credit or not, and at what point to intervene so they don't slip, you know, behind the cracks and be a sophomore, or I should say a senior with missing credits. What is it that we can do now to target those students? Which I don't want to go on and on with this, but that's, iReady is not the answer. It's a tool. That's what helps us when we're able to see the number of students where those kids are, what classes they're in, for us to know these are the kids. We know who the kids are. What are we doing to support them with the other intervention opportunities that we have? Great. The last question that I did have is that I know we received quite a few out-of-district students, and based on that and their transcripts, are those students who we're speaking of? I'm going to say when the student, whether they're in district or out of district, they're an Oak Park student. And so we can look at cohorting data, looking at, those are some next steps for us. But really, when we're looking at our student data, regardless if they're in district or they're Oak Park students, the state isn't going to deliver a report and say, oh, these are the kids that are in resident, out of, we have to, so that's from my perspective from teaching and learning. Thank you.
I know Trustee Alvin has another question, but are there any other Trustee Goodfriend?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Batiste. It was an outstanding presentation, and it was in clear thoughts and wording. But the question, and I appreciate what you've done to show us where the problems are. When our greatest hope, I believe, will be when we have children in the elementaries to be bringing them along. When we get into high school or 9 through 12, how, other than credit recovery, how do we improve their abilities to be able to go out in this world, not as a football player, not as a basketball player, to get a scholarship, because the failure will come in the university that they go to if that's the only way they got into it and they don't have the skills. That's the worry that I have. And the other concern is these young people, we have little ones, K through say 8. And I believe you have it on record showing us we can do something with those youngsters because they're young, their minds are ready to be developed with our leadership and the family at home. But we have to take into effect that the families are having hardships too within their homes. And so I think we have a burden, our staff has a burden, Dr. Hitchcock has the burden, and you, of trying to develop something within the classroom for them. So how are we going to work with the young ones that we're getting now, hoping to bring them along so that they don't end up with the development that we see now. I do know that COVID had a lot to do with this past year. It was a very difficult year for the students as well as the staff, all of us. But we have to be able to do and work at this together to be able to bring them around, because somebody that's 3 grades behind the level is a really discouraging for the individual child as well. They know when they're having a problem. What do we, I understand our staff is doing it, but how can we develop another way, a method, if it's Saturday schools, if it's at night is very difficult, but if you had some suggestions, and Dr. Hitchcock had some suggestions of how we as a board can develop tutoring for them as not as a problem that they have to go, but because it's fun for them to learn. And when they see success, they'll go on for more.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and that's the biggest part of what the teaching and learning department is engaging in right now, is really thinking about, I mentioned instructionally, pedagogically, but now what you're speaking to, Ms. Goodfriend, is programmatically. So
Right.
thinking about the programs that we actually have for our students. So this year and last year, we had this at the high school and at the middle school level, an organization called Inside Out Literacy, where students wrote and published writing and worked with published authors, and those published authors collaborated with their teachers, even over Zoom. That was at the secondary level. I brought it into elementary schools. So it was a success for our 5th grade students. This year, it's 3rd, 4th, and 5th also engaging in that. They just got a grant that allows us to do that work. The Oakland Youth Innovation Lab was just one example of an opportunity where students came together over the course of the summer and engaged in design thinking. And many of the students that were in that program, not all, but there were a few, I wanted to make sure that the criteria wasn't that you're a straight A student. There were students in that program that were 3 or more grade levels below that flourished in that program. So then that made the teaching and learning team and Dr. Hitchcock really start to consider what type of academic offering do we have for our students? How are our classes set up to engage in different learning methodologies? And then not only thinking about tutoring, but when we do tutoring, there was a high interest last year from our teachers to do tutoring in a way that was fun. How do we do tutoring where it's an after-school club on poetry, or even on creating a blog where now you're writing, or you're interested in gaming, so that deals with algorithms and math. So what type of programming do we offer during outside of school time that's still engaging for students? So these are things that we're definitely considering and implementing from last year into this year as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It was just so thorough and so easy to understand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Trustee Lunkins.
I think you might be muted.
Trustee Lunkins, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Thanks.
Trustee Lunkins, we're still not hearing you.
That's what I'm trying to do.
There you go.
Okay. I just wanted to say to Carol, Mrs. Baptiste, and to Pat. Pat actually brought me the I think she said it was 100-page of all of this here. And I got a chance to sit down and read it so that when Mrs. Baptiste was explaining it, I had more insight as to what she was saying because I had it prior to her giving us to read and understand it. And what I didn't understand, she was able to help me understand. And I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Ms. Baptiste, thank you for your presentation. One of the numbers that stood out to me when I was looking at the report is that it seems to be, we seem to be building on the problem. So as students get older, they're falling further behind.
Yeah.
Do we understand that, to what extent do we understand that to be a function of, you know, if they're behind in younger grades, they continue to fall behind and they're not advancing? To what extent is that speaking to the difference in retaining our students from elementary through middle to high school?
That's part of some of our next steps in action research as a district, is to really, now that we know who the students are, where they are, really looking at, okay, what's the cohort of students K-5, the cohort of students K-8, and then that cohort of students who were K-12, what happened with those students? Knowing who they are, the number of those students, did they make a turnaround? Did they regress? Were we able to retain them within our district, specifically from grade 8 into grade 9? Did they stay with us within this district? And really taking into consideration of not playing a blame game of blaming the teachers or blaming the students and the families, but really just taking into consideration, looking at whole child data. What are some of the implications, like not only their attendance, but what's happening with their families and those extra additional supports that are needed within a cohort of students? We're better able to do that with the data that we have.
And I understand that iReady is a new test. Is there data we can pull from the old tests that can inform that? Or is this, are we really starting here from year one?
No, so our previous amazing district data and assessment coordinator, Shayna Murphy, I should say. Principal Murphy's the principal at Key Elementary, and in her role previously, she did engage in some of that work with NWEA, and she shared when we met with all building leaders that would be something we could do with iReady data as well, and be able to look at the cohort, even the cohort of students who just completed with NWEA last year, that cohort of students that's still with us, just being able to continue looking at that, but using iReady data. So it's not completely novel. We just need to do it a little bit more with fidelity.
Okay. And then as we follow the strategy, what's the outlook that we can look forward to? Are we talking about, you know, what kind of impact can we see on flipping that triangle 1 year out, 5 years out? What are we looking at?
Well, that is literally one of our next steps with using the MyKIP. The very next step is to create an academic goal where we put together targeted, you know, okay, within 1 year, we would like to see, don't quote me on this because we're still unpacking data and really building our data narrative, but looking to see, and why I say don't quote me, because I know teachers will be like, we're all supposed to do what? We're still targeting this using the Michigan Continuous Improvement process, but within a year, students moving or being on grade level, ending the school year and starting the school year on grade level. That's a goal in and of itself. Within 2 years, moving students, again, reassessing the triangle, what percentage of students were moved out of tier 3 into tier 2? What percentage were moved out of tier 2 into tier 1? And then within tier 1, what enrichment opportunities do we have so that those students that are in tier 1 are not regressing to now need tier 2 supports? So building an academic goal around that, sustaining, making sure that our students are not only at grade level, but able to go beyond.
So my KIP requires us to create plans to bring the students to grade level by next year's test. Is that
So
right?
what my KIP, it doesn't have stringent requirements on districts, but it replaces the school improvement plan and the district improvement plan. The compliance issue that comes up, that's not an issue, but the compliance factor that comes up from my KIP is if you're saying you're using title funds for this, what's the efficacy of that? What's the evidence-based practice? What's the data that shows that this program that you invested in, and you invested in more than 1 year, that it actually helped you to move your students along? Or a professional development program that you're investing in for your teachers, that there was some type of support that it offered for teachers, and we see that reflected in the student data. But it's not a punitive, which I'm not saying that you're saying that, but it's not a punitive, like, oh, you didn't meet grade level, you didn't do what you needed to do as a district. It's more of systems level thinking, or capacity of what you're doing within your district. How is that aligned to your strategic goals as a district, and what you're doing with the resources that you have, making adjustments based on the resources that you have. So if you're not seeing that students are growing, why would you use that same program again?
So as we move along that process, if you can please keep the board updated and report back to us on what is the strategy, what are the results we're seeing, so we can make sure we're paying close attention to that. As
You got it. And that's also part of that process as well. So you got it.
Okay. Trustee Elvin and then Trustee Lunkins.
Thank you. So I believe I heard you mention some tutoring opportunity for the students. So to what extent is that something we're implementing, and how soon is that something we're implementing as far as, make sure they get extra help? I'm assuming there's some grant funding or whatever the case may be that may go with that. So how soon are we doing that? Who are we engaging? Others who aren't teachers? What are we doing in that space?
Yes. So at the secondary level, we're better able to see, okay, with that credit recovery piece, we're really not trying to be doing credit recovery as much in June when we can target students now. So that's up and running, where postings are out. And there's processes that we have to follow where we put a posting out for 10 days. There's staff that have to apply. Same thing for Nova. They're ready to get this up and going, and they've got the grant funding and the clearance to do that. At the elementary and the middle school level, it's a lot more targeted, where they're also using their MTSS, because there's so many students that may be in need, that they're using MTSS strategies across grade bands to see who are those students who truly need tutoring, and targeting those students first. So that's what's happening there.
When do you expect to actually have people in front of children working with them?
Between now and before the Christmas break.
Okay. And then I believe you said they're tested 3 times. Is that right?
Yes.
So when the next test was that?
January, February. We don't have the kids all testing all at once.
Okay.
So elementary is 1 week, and so between January and February, we'll have, and also the first data presentation that I did for the board a couple of weeks ago, it's at the February meeting that I come again before you with data points with how our students are doing.
And then to what extent are our students and their parents, more so than the students, willing to make sure these students take place in that?
Can you please say that again?
So to what extent are their students and parents making sure that they take advantage of the extra enrichment?
So we had tutoring last year in the spring, and we had approximately 500, almost 600 students participate in tutoring across our district, and it was virtual. So I think that there is an interest in that, and it wasn't something that was like, oh, you're just mandated because you're failing. It was teachers who identified students in need of tutoring, and then students who could also sign themselves up. So I do think that it is of interest to our students and our families.
Yes, I'd be interested in seeing particularly also the data from that says these are the students who are offered and accepted at increased enrichment.
Yep.
And then whether that moves the needle in any way. Finally, also, are we looking at what other districts are doing that are, whose students are a little bit more on grade level that we can maybe implement here?
So, question or statement?
Yeah, it was a question. So have we looked at what others in other districts are doing with where their students are more on grade level that maybe something we can implement here in Oak Park?
That is something that countywide, when I meet with the Teaching and Learning Council across the county, that we do collaborate and find out as much as what's happening in your district. Let's share data points with one another. And I recently made connection with the assistant superintendents at Berkeley and also at Ferndale to get a better sense of what they're doing K-12, but in particular at the high school, at their high schools, and learned through that one of the programs that they're using, we've implemented. So Read 180 is now available for our high school students, and that's a tier 2 intervention support, which we implemented this year.
Thank you.
Trustee Lunkins? You need to unmute yourself.
Mrs. Baptiste, I guess my question would be, how as we as parents can prepare our kindergartens for the upcoming years of what they're going to be facing with this program that you're running? What do we do as parents? What do we do as neighbors?
So one of the things that's happening that I know at the middle school and also at the elementary school, and it's forthcoming at the high school, but with our Title I family and community engagement, there's been outreach for families, if you want to be a part of a PTA, that's something across our district we may not have in all of our school communities. That's a goal that many of our school principals have, of establishing PTAs where parents are able to get better information about what they can do to support, how they can be involved. And that's one of the starts. When we have district level meetings or different school-based meetings, the communication for parents, that they get the communications in time so that they can participate. Surveys that will help us to better understand what type of supports our parents want and need, and then act from there.
Okay. I had another question, but just okay, I'll wait.
Go ahead, Trustee Lunkins.
I guess the advantage, the advantages of teaching our kindergartners before they even start school as to what to expect, but in a small group and a large group, where they can understand what it is that they're going to be doing and what we expect of them and what they're going to have to do.
So my response to that is, one, I think that's a great question, and that's homework also for me as well. We do have an early childhood director, and we do have a young 5s kindergarten class that is open this year. But really, the homework is really, there's a lot of focus at the secondary level. What are we doing right out the gate for kindergarten? By the end of the year, where should a kindergartner be, knowing that over the summer, there's summer slide. So when they come back in the fall, they're ready to go for first grade. So that's how that in itself is collaborating with kindergarten PLCs or professional learning communities. So the kindergarten teachers, no matter if you're at Key, Pepper, or Einstein, there's coherence in what you're doing for those students. So there's expectations by the end of the year. This is what kindergartners are expected to do. What does that require of us during the year so they meet that threshold at the end of the year? So that's homework. That's the next step for me.
Trustee Lunkins, I had to mute you. There was background noise. You can unmute yourself. I'm sorry, trustee Lunkins, we can't hear you.
Wouldn't it help if our students in kindergarten, let's say those that go to preschool, know some of this before they even start kindergarten? Doesn't it help?
It does help. And that is one of the reasons why in our GSRP program, we really have been making sure to utilize the curriculum that's been offered to us through Oakland schools, which is called high scope curriculum, as one of the curriculum points to support our early childhood students before they even enter kindergarten. And then same thing for our kindergarten teachers. We have instructional coaches, but also one of our kindergarten teachers is a literacy coach. And so the supports through her literacy coaching in collaboration with the instructional coach for what to do for early childhood learners is something that is a targeted focus at the elementary school.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. We move on to reports.
Thank you, Ms. Betty.
We will start with a report from our superintendent, Dr. Hitchcock.
Good evening, board trustees. I would like to encourage you to review the written report that I gave on Friday, October 22nd. And I will spend my time this evening sharing an update that was sent to us by the Michigan Department of Education and reading a press release that quotes the state superintendent about one of our teachers. So this afternoon, we received a press release from the Michigan Department of Education indicating that they were pleased to announce the release of the latest Proud Michigan Educator video featuring 2021 Michigan Teacher of the Year, our own Owen Bandano. The Proud Michigan Educator campaign is one way to honor the hard work of dedicated educators like Mr. Bandano, said State Superintendent Dr. Michael Rice. We hope that his experiences and reflections will help other students understand the importance of, or others understand the importance of diverse voices in our classrooms and schools and motivate people to consider a career in education. Mr. Bandano is Michigan's first openly transgender Teacher of the Year and has been open about the hurdles he faced in the journey to become a teacher. Through his story, he hopes to inspire others to join the teaching profession and create classrooms that are welcoming and accepting of students. I am going to share a video that was also highlighted in the press release. So let me pull that up because it consists of a couple of our teachers. We want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to see it. Oh, here we are. Oops. Let me turn on the sound. I'm assuming you guys cannot hear that.
No.
And they were running around calling each other lesbians. They had no idea what the word meant, but some adult in their life were using it as an insult, so they were using it as an insult.
Jim. Say that again.
Jim, would it be a problem that the sound on the computer?
Can you turn off my mic? Do you think that's part of it? Check mark. Don't see a check mark.
When you share.
Oh, awesome. Got it. Okay, let's try it.
And as somebody who has a lesbian mother, in my family, being a teacher is a little bit of the family job. There were elements of myself and my family that weren't welcome in school. For example, I remember a day when a couple of little boys were on the playground and they were running around calling each other lesbian. They had no idea what the word meant, but some adult in their life had used it as an insult, so they were using it as an insult, the way that kids do. And as somebody who has a lesbian mother, I went up to them and I said, "Do you know what that word means?" And they admitted they didn't, and so I defined it the way my mother had defined it to me, which was it's when a girl loves other girls instead of loving boys. And the little boy said, "Okay," and just went about their day, but a teacher overheard it, and I got in trouble for talking about inappropriate subjects at school. When I was in college is actually when I came out as transgender and I began to transition. When that happened, I was also going to school to become a teacher, of course. And a few of my professors discouraged me from transitioning. They told me that people weren't going to want a transgender person in front of their students. So if I decided to transition, I probably shouldn't continue pursuing education, that those two things weren't compatible. I was encouraged by some maybe to try a different career path. Others told me, well, if you're going to transition, just do it really well so nobody can tell and just keep it a secret. But then I even had one who told me that I should really detransition back to being a girl because in their mind it would be better for me to live my whole life in the wrong gender than it would be for me to try and be a teacher who is transgender.
I think it's important for every teacher to be their authentic self when they're in a classroom or in a school because that's what the students gravitate towards. Students know immediately if their teacher is fake.
To make them feel welcome is to actually show them that you are happy to have them there, right? Not just that they are some sort of, token extra voice in the classroom. And again, this is not just something that applies to LGBTQ students. This is something that applies to any student of a historically marginalized community. If you are in a classroom that is more diverse, everyone has a better opportunity to learn.
I'm someone who had mixed experiences in school. I had some really great educational experiences that taught me my potential and the possibilities for my life, and I also had some experiences that limited me or made me doubt myself. And I draw from both of those experiences as a teacher. I had an English professor whose husband was a trans guy like me, and so she literally brought him into class one day for me to meet. This guy was queer, transgender, and he was a lawyer. And he came into class with his suit and tie and his briefcase and looked like any other lawyer I'd ever seen on television. And it was the first time where I looked at someone and thought, I could do that. I could have a career. I could be just another person living a successful life with a family, and I could be transgender. That's possible. And I think we all need role models for what's possible in our lives.
He really thinks outside of the box when it comes to students. His ability to differentiate and meet the needs of every single student in his class is so inspiring.
Mr. Bonham is a caring, loving teacher and also funny. And he just makes it feel comfortable just being in that Zoom meeting. He motivates us to push ourselves harder.
things that Mr. Bondano does to make me feel like he cares about me as well as my peers would be being understanding when it comes to our schedules and our grades, and always continually asking us how we feel about certain things, including us. Mr. Bondano has always found a way to include our diversity as far as gender and race and different things like that that makes us different.
I wish that my teachers had known that there is no such thing as being too young to talk about LGBTQ plus issues, and there is no such thing as not being able to talk about it because you don't have any kids like that in your room. You never know what your kids may identify as later in life. You never know who they may love who identifies that way. And I wish they had known that we need explicit support, not just a general sentiment of everyone being welcome, but that we need explicit support. We need to see ourselves in the curriculum. We need teachers to address it directly, especially the moments of homophobia and transphobia that may occur in the classroom. It's not enough to just say everyone's welcome here. We have to explicitly welcome our LGBTQ plus students and families.
My name is Eric Caldwell, and I'm a proud Michigan educator.
My name is Pam Vermiglio, and I am a proud Michigan educator.
My name is Owen Bondano, and I'm a proud Michigan educator.
Okay, great. I would like to go on to say that Mr. Bondano is the first openly transgender teacher of the year. And he is groundbreaking here in Oak Park. We are pleased that he felt comfortable to share his story, not only with the state, but the country. He was recently acknowledged at the White House for his contributions as an educator, and we are very proud that he is a member of the Oak Park staff and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Okay, then we move to our Chief Financial and Operations Officer, Mrs. Jones.
Yeah. Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
No real report today. No update other than at the last board meeting, we walked through the current budget projections. I think everybody's aware that Jamie shared that presentation with everybody. And we're continuing to update the numbers on a regular basis. The latest numbers were around 3,600 for enrollment, which is definitely a move in the right direction. As a reminder, the budget was 3,900, so we are still far below where we want to be. And we do think that we'll land somewhere around that 3,600 and some change for enrollment. It doesn't really change the numbers in terms of what was presented. I mean, it does change the numbers, in fact, but it doesn't change the story in terms of where we're headed. The story is still the same. We need to keep working on getting enrollment up a little bit higher. But that is some positive news, as well as the fact that based on us sharing that information, we did have a really good conversation today with OPEA and making some headway towards negotiations on the hazard pay versus the step. And I think that's something that will hopefully get reconciled in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Lunkins.
Ms. Jones, how many students you said we had?
I'm sorry, what's that?
How
many students head count did you say we had?
Around 3,600. We're still counting. We have until November 5th, but the latest was 3,632.
Okay. That's no question.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? I want to thank you and thank our administrators and our teachers who have worked really hard. That's obviously not where we want to see enrollment, but it's a lot better than where we were what we were looking at even 2 weeks ago. And that really reflects hard work from those who are making sure that our students are being counted properly and getting in the classrooms. So that's really encouraging. Thank you. And Ms. Baptiste, did you have a report?
No, I don't have any other additional reports for this week.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to public participation. Trustee Lunkins, can you please read the public participation?
Okay. Members of the audience are invited to participate at board meetings prior to the business portion of the meeting, following conclusion of reports, and prior to the adjournment of each meeting. You will be recognized by the board president and asked to give your name and address before making your statements or comments. Please present a concise statement of your concerns. The board president may choose to limit your presentations to 3 minutes in order that all who wish to speak may have the opportunity to do so. Thank you for your cooperation. If any person with disability needs special accommodations at our board education meetings, please contact the superintendent's office at 248-336-7705, 7 days a week prior to the meeting date.
Thank you. And so those who would like to address the board at this time, you raise your hand in the participants tab or indicate in the chat that you'd like to speak. If you're here in person, you can also step up to the podium and you will be recognized. I do want to remind the public that this is an opportunity to address the board as a whole. Please don't address any individual members of the board, other members of the audience, or the superintendent or other members of administration. It's also going to be a one-way communication, so we want to hear your comments, but we do not respond to public comments in this forum. If you have questions that you need answered, please feel free to address those to building administrators or to central office administration. And then, of course, we will not allow any behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, discourteous, or that otherwise interferes with the orderly conduct and timely completion of the board meeting. People who violate that will be excluded from the meeting if it constitutes a breach of peace. Kenneth Sherman, go ahead.
Good evening, superintendent and school board members. My name is Kenneth Sherman. My address is 23840 Jerome in Oak Park. I am an Oak Park resident and a product of the Oak Park schools with a 2022 50th class reunion. As you may or may not be aware of, the city's library, effective today, is now closed to the public indefinitely between 3 to 4 p.m. due to COVID-19, increased traffic, and staffing issues. The exception to this closure is by appointment only. When I went to keep my scheduled appointment today, I was greeted at the library's entranceway by approximately 50 students, posing both safety and fire hazards. My 3 questions are as follows. Where have the students been going prior to today's 3 to 4 p.m. library closure? Number 2, where should the students be going as of today's 3 to 4 p.m. library closure, especially with changing weather conditions and the upcoming time change? And 3, what roles and responsibilities does the school district and parents play in this issue? Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Weiss.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Weiss, 24101 Norwood, Oak Park. I know pretty much all of you, and I know all of you know me, and I'm here for a couple reasons tonight. One is to express my concern. Looking at this data, listening tonight, I'm so concerned that we are looking at a school district in crisis. And I want to do my part to support and to help where I can. And I'm hoping there are some things that are going to be put in place. I was really happy to hear that you have adopted the Read 180 program. That's something that I have discussed with some of you already. That's effective in Ferndale and Hazel Park, so I'm thrilled to hear that. I have a question. I'm wondering if you have partnered with Oakland schools in any way as far as academic support. Back when I was teaching there, we had some consultants from Oakland schools come out and work with the teachers in the classroom and work with students. I don't know if that's something that is available now, but I would encourage you to investigate and find out if it is. I would also encourage you to take this situation as the crisis that it is. I believe it should be at this point all hands on deck. I believe we're at all possible school board members. I love what Mr. Smith said. Where can I be of value? Where can I help? I would hope that any and all of you that are in any way possibly free during the day to please show up at the schools, mentor the kids, tutor the kids, see what's going on with your eyes, not just what you're hearing, but you need to see it. And I'd also encourage that of Dr. Hitchcock and central office staff. I think this is a very serious crisis and it needs to be addressed as so. When there's 1%, 2%, 10% of students meeting grade level expectations, this is a crisis. On another note, I want to share something positive in my role as Oak Park Youth Assistants that we are doing. We are teaming up with the Oak Park Library, with Recreation. Hopefully, we're still working out the details, but we are planning to offer group sessions for teens. We are going to be hiring a professional therapist, and we're going to offer sessions on conflict resolution, self-esteem, other assorted topics that will be running one group, 2 groups at a time, like one group on one day, one group on another day, 6-week program. We are going to fund it through Oak Park Youth Assistants. We are going to try to help these kids, give them the skills that they need to improve as far as behavior. So this is something we are going to be voting on officially on Thursday at our board meeting. I will be happy to report back. I am here because I care deeply about this school district. I care deeply about this city. I will support you however I can, but I'm asking for everyone to please join in. If there are things the community can do that you want me to share with the community, I'm here. Tell me, help me. I do intend to follow up with probably each of you on the school board within the next week to discuss this further. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And seeing no other comment, we will move forward with the agenda. And our next item is our action items. We start with action item 7A. Trustee Goodfriend, do you have that? Trustee Goodfriend, you're muted.
Thank you. You want me to read the entire bid award?
Just the action item, the motion.
Okay, that's the recommendation, correct?
It starts with resolve that the Oak Park School District.
Oh, see, that I don't have. It's not on here, but let me see what I can do for you. Okay.
I have it.
Do you have it? Then please take it, Mr. Klein.
Trustee Elvin, go ahead.
Resolve that the Oak Park School District Board of Education, in the best interest of the district, awards the bid for construction management services to Rockford Construction in the amount of $3,649,910, and that the funds be expended from the 2021 bond program. This recommendation came before the board for information and discussion at the October 11th, 2021 regular board meeting and comes before the board tonight for approval.
Support.
Moved by Trustee Elvin, supported by Trustee Goodfriend. Are there any questions from the board on the motion?
I have a question.
Trustee Corporate.
Does this bond fund, this is for the furniture too as well, right? The merchandise that's going inside, or is this for the HVAC for Lessinger?
This
This is the
is
construction for the bond, correct?
this is construction management for the bond.
Okay.
Right?
Because the reason why I asked that question, I was watching the national news yesterday in regards to the containers that they lost on the ship. And also the ship was also on fire with some containers, which sparked my interest. I hope any, our furniture wasn't on there or any materials that we might need. But I guess that would be, we would have to know, but I just wanted to just bring that to the board's attention that I do know that there are some issues with supplies out at sea for the logistics part of suppliers. They have the ships that are not docked yet. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Alvin.
Question, and maybe someone from Rockford can answer that. So I think I saw someone from Rockford here. So the people who are on the organization chart, are those the people that are going to be working with us directly?
Good evening, this is Ed with Rockford Construction. Yes, those are the individuals that will be there working and partnering with Oak Park Schools.
Thank you. It's good to see a diverse group of individuals who would be doing that. So I appreciate it.
Trustee Goodfriend.
Mr. Bloom, I did read all of the materials, and I too have to commend the company, and I feel really quite comfortable. I do have a question. Once now that we can get started with construction, et cetera, will you be having a construction manager on site?
Yes, we will have a full-time superintendent. We will also have a field engineer. And then we also have a project manager that will be stopping in time to time, along with performing weekly meetings with the district.
So will they house these particular individuals in a trailer that's on site? That's the way it's been in the past. I just wonder if that's the same as in previous construction.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have a construction job site trailer for the personnel, and we'll coordinate with Steve on location, et cetera.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on the motion? So the motion is to approve Rockford Construction as construction manager for the bond project. Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Smith,
Yes.
Lunkins,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Goodfriend,
Yes.
Alvin.
Yes.
Copeland.
Yes.
We move on to action item 7B. Ms. Trustee Klein, can you read that one, please?
Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education approved trustee Dawn Corcoran and trustee Maxine Goodfriend attendance at the Thrun Law Firm Open Meetings Act webinar on November 3, 2021 at a cost of $150 per person.
Is there a second?
Second.
Support.
Moved by trustee Klein, supported by trustee Lunkins. Do any board members have questions on this motion? All right, Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Hoda,
Yes.
Copeland,
Yes.
Alvin,
Yes.
Lunkins,
Yes.
Goodfriend,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Smith.
No.
We move to 7C, which is approval of the personnel actions. Is there a motion to approve the personnel actions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by trustee Alvin, supported by trustee Lunkins. Do any board members have questions on the personnel actions?
Yes, I had a question.
Go ahead, trustee Corcoran.
The question I had is, unfortunately, we do have a few resignations, and I once again wanted to ask in regards to the exit interviews. The question is, why did they leave, or what was the reason that they gave at the exit interview, if they had an exit interview?
As previously mentioned, the Human Resources Department allows each individual to complete an exit interview. Some of these individuals have not actually left the district yet, but they will be afforded the same opportunity for an exit interview. So we will receive data from each of the individuals who've resigned if they are willing to share that information with us.
In the past, have we had anyone say why they left?
Yes, that information has been previously shared at a board meeting as well. There's a myriad of reasons why individuals have left the school district.
So seeing that we have had a fluctuating amount of teachers leaving, I guess the question is, are there substitutes in place, or have we hired to replace those resignated teachers?
As the board is aware, our decline in the ability to retain our students has contributed to us needing to staff based on the number of students who are currently in the school district. So in the positions where there's a cost savings, we are able to restructure so we don't have to replace that individual. We've moved forward with doing that. In the cases where the position needs to be reposted as a result of the inability to restructure or the intricacy of the position, we have reposted the position. It really depends on each individual position, the situation, the number of students in that particular building, classroom, or school.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? The motion is on approval of the personnel actions. Ms. Spear, can you please call the roll?
Cochran,
Yes.
Alvin,
Yes.
Goodfriend,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Lunkins,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
We move on to approval of the financial statements for September 2021. Is there a motion to approve the financial statement?
Move approval of the financial statements as presented.
Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by trustee Elvin, supported by trustee Corcoran. Are there any questions on the motion to approve the financial statement?
You have a
Trustee
question.
Corcoran.
So my question is, the statement that we're approving, oh man, how am I going to ask this question? Okay. The statement that we are approving, I noticed that there was a negative $6,000. And I just had a question, is that, how are we going to replace that amount? You know, where the funds are going to come from for the annual, the revenue in excess of expenditures?
Right, so the budget that was approved by the board in June includes a revenue in excess of expenditures that we, partially because we've seen a decline in the retention of students and partially because we are working to spend down some of the fund balance that we have strategically so that we're meeting the needs of students. So that is in line with the reports that have been previously provided to the board and approved by the board. Both.
So are we approving what's already paid, or is this what we're approving?
So the financial statements are a reflection of the current financial status of the district. So we're approving that it reflects the current financial status of the district. And that status is shown in relation to the budget that we passed in June and where we stand in relation to that budget.
So the question is, are we approving? So you're saying we already approved this?
we approve the budget, and then as with any organization, we have financial statements that reflect the status, the current financial status of the organization this month in relation to the budget that was passed, the year-long budget that was passed in June.
So you're saying what we're approving right here in September's budget is from
What
last
we're
year?
approving is the September financial statement. So it's a statement of the financial position of the district.
Okay, right. So are these bills that have already been paid that we're approving? Or are we approving what we haven't seen yet? I mean, the bills that were already written, already paid, I'm sorry. Yeah, come on.
I'm sorry, I can't understand. I can't
She's
hear.
asking is, I mean, again, we're not approving this is not about approval of spending. It's a financial statement. It's a statement of, just like every month you get an account statement from your bank that tells you how much money has come in and how much money has gone out. You get a statement from your credit card that says how much money is owed, how much money has been paid. This is a statement of the financial position of the district.
So when you receive a statement, it's something that you've already spent, correct?
Yeah, in the expended and encumbered column, those are our expenses through September 30th, as well as any monies that have been committed. Like, let's say you have a purchase order for $1,000 to a vendor, but only 800 has been paid. So you still owe them 200. So 800 would be expended and 200 would be encumbered. But yes, it's monies that have been spent or are committed through September 30th.
So I guess I haven't, okay. All right, I just don't want to get too far into it because I don't want to, you know, I mean, I'm not afraid to speak on it, but it's just that every time I go to speak in regards to the budgeting or approving, is it something that was spent for the board to approve what was spent, but you just explained it to me. Thank you very much. And the other question was, okay, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Because we're approving.
All right,
something
Ms.
we
Greer,
haven't seen.
the question is on approval of the September financial statements. Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Smith,
Yes.
Lunkins, Klein,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Goodfriend,
Yes.
Alvin.
Yes.
And Copeland.
Yes.
And I voted yes. I was muted again.
Okay. We move to information items. And before we go to the information items on the agenda, I noticed that our representative from Plant Moran is here. And I wonder, I know the board asked for Plant Moran to be available once a month to answer questions. Do any board members have questions for Kevin or our other representatives from Plant Moran?
Yes, I do.
Trustee Corcoran?
Yes, the only question that I have is in regards to the supplies that you have ordered. Have you seen that, or I don't know if how you order them, but have you seen that there is a hold or some type of delay on materials?
Good evening. This is Kevin Donnelly with Plant Moran Cressa. We've seen over the past year, 2021, an unprecedented market out there right now as far as volatility on material availability, labor availability, and all the above because of the COVID and the pent-up demand that was released this year. We're actually expecting a very similar year next year. But with that being said, the team is proactively putting plans in place to procure materials earlier than you would normally do to ensure that materials are on site on time. And the team's gonna be working closely with Rockford Construction as well to mitigate those market risks. But I would say that we should definitely expect 2022 to be a very challenging year as far as procurement of materials.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you, Kevin. We move to information item A, which is about the school of choice window.
Annually, the Board of Education is required to approve the schools of choice options for the subsequent school year. For the second semester of the 21-22 school year, the following is recommended. Section 105, which is Oakland County, and Section 105C, which is contiguous counties. For Oakland County pre-K through fifth grade, options will be open, as well as 6th through 12th grade for virtual learning only. And that limited application period will take place January 10th through January 21st of 2022. And the contiguous counties will be the same thing. Students will have an opportunity to register through our Oak Park virtual program during that limited time from January 10th through January 21st. So we have limited school of choice opportunities for the 21-22 school year in the winter term. For the following school year in 22-23, for Oakland County and contiguous counties, we have pre-K through 12, inclusive of Oak Park Virtual. It's unlimited. It will be open to all students and open at all schools. This will occur, application dates and the window is Monday, June 13th, 2022 through Friday, September 30th, 2022. If a pending approval from the MDE waiver is provided. Typically, we are supposed to stop school and choice enrollment the Friday of the first week of school. This will be the case for contiguous counties as well. Unlimited school of choice window open Monday, June 13th through Friday, September 30th, 2022. If an MDE waiver is approved to keep the window open through through September 30th. And that is all I have to share.
Thank you. Any questions from the board about the schools of choice?
I have a comment. I'm actually just looking forward to the possibility that we will be able to have a waiver so that we won't fall into the same status that we did this year. And I'm just hoping that things pan out in a positive direction. That's it.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay, we move on to 8B, which is about the superintendent contract. Several months back, the board voted to instruct me to instruct our attorney to engage with the superintendent in negotiations for an extension of her contract, which expires at the end of this school year. I've been informed by our attorney that he was able to, that he did receive a proposal from the superintendent's attorney last week, and he'd like to present that to the board for discussion in a closed session. He gave me several dates that he's available, so let me pull those up and ask the board what we would like to do. So sorry, my computer is, here we go. He is available sorry. He is available the evenings of November 1st, 3rd, 8th, or 10th. We can do that meeting virtually since we are still under a state of emergency. So is there any dates on that list that any board member is not available? The first, November 1st, 3rd, 8th, or 10th?
Well,
Definitely
the
not the third.
November,
third is the meeting with the Thruin Law Firm.
and then November 10th is the leadership conference here. So that's
okay. How about November 1st?
That's a travel
That's
day.
good by me. November 1st is good by me. Can we do that?
November 1st is good by me.
I'm fine.
I was asking, what day is that we meet with Mr. Green? Dr. Green.
Dr. who?
Dr. Green.
Oh,
Green.
that's the end of November.
Okay.
So November 1st works for me.
November 1st works for me.
It works for me.
I'm fine.
All right. So does 6 o'clock on November 1st work for everyone?
Perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. I will communicate that to Mr. Sutton and get back to the board on that. Thank you, everyone. Sorry?
I said, is his first name Kevin?
Kevin, yes. And that brings us to communications and addenda. So at this time, we will open the floor again for public comment. If there's members of the community that would like to address the board, please raise your hand using the participants tab or indicate in the chat or step up to the microphone here in the auditorium. Seeing none, I'll ask, is there any communications or addenda from members of the board?
I saw a student in the hallway and I asked him what his favorite teacher was, and he told me it was Mr. Walker. So congratulations, Mr. Walker. I wanted to share that.
Congratulations, Mr. Walker. Very good.
Okay.
And I will report back to the board. I attended the Oakland County School Board Association annual meeting on Wednesday night at West Bloomfield High School and had the opportunity to speak with our colleagues in other districts in Oakland County, as well as superintendents, and also to hear, there was a presentation from Dr. Wanda Cook Robinson, who's the superintendent of Oakland Schools. She spoke about the mobile learning lab, the mobile innovation learning lab. And I was very proud in the video she showed because we were the pilot program here over the summer. We had featured several Oak Park students, and I was able to share with several of our colleagues in Oakland County about what a great program that was and encourage them to bring it to their districts. She did also share with us that her vision is to get several more so that it can be available to, but it is very expensive, but definitely a worthwhile tool. We also heard a presentation from Robert McCann, I believe his name is, the head of the K-12 Learning Alliance and also the School Funding Research Collaborative. And he spoke about the study that was done several years ago on school funding and how it identified that the cost of educating students in Michigan being at about $9,400, I believe, something like that. But also emphasize that that people get caught up on that number, but it's very important also to recognize that it advocated for a weighted funding formula that recognizes that the needs of students with English language learning needs, as well as at-risk students, makes the cost very different. And so that report advocated for a weighted funding formula, which has not been met in any of the funding proposals since. So neither the governor's proposals, nor the House, nor the Senate, Republicans, nor Democrats. A lot of people have talked about being informed by the School Funding Research Collaborative research, but none of those proposals has ever really gone along with what that research found about what it actually takes to educate students. The group that did the original study has come back and done an update to that study and has updated the cost of educating students. The primary, and that number has gone up to just over $10,000 a student. And the primary driver of that increase in cost is the cost of benefits, the increased cost of benefits for staff, which is a very large expense for school districts. It was a very informative meeting. He encouraged everyone to read the report that was done, and I encourage that is available to anyone. You can go to Fund My Schools, fundmischools.org. So again, that's Fund My Schools, fundmyschools.org, and it really goes through in great detail exactly what it costs to educate students and why it is that as policymakers continue to fund districts in a way that we know is not going to work, we see the results that some of which we saw tonight. And so it's important for us to continue advocating with policymakers on that issue of the weighted funding formula, on that issue of making sure that every district has what it takes to educate students, has the funding that it takes to educate students, and that we move in that direction, and that we continue to look at other factors which were identified but not included in this report, which are capital needs, which is certainly something our district sees the discrepancy in capital needs being significant, as well as transportation needs and special education needs, which were not addressed in that report. So I wanted to share that with the board and encourage everyone to go to fundmyschools.org and read that report. Did you have a question, Trustee Elvin? Oh, did you? Okay, Trustee Elvin?
So yeah, just one announcement. So on Saturday, October 30th from 10 to 2, I'll be taking part with another organization with which I belong in a vaccination clinic in partnership with the city of Detroit and the Midnight Golf Program. Anyone who wants to get their COVID vaccination or the booster shot or a flu shot can come down and get vaccinated at 293 Elliott Street in Detroit, Michigan, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Saturday. I know it's if you come early enough, you won't hit the Michigan State game. You can still have time to do that. So go blue, but in any case, I'm putting that out there. Thank you.
Good job, Elvin.
Anything else from members of the board? Anything from members of the administration?
Yes, I have one announcement. I just want to take this opportunity to recognize Christine Jones. She is our CFOO, who will no longer be our CFOO after tomorrow. She joined the staff just in mid-September, but has already proven to have an amazing skill set, a skill set that is so amazing that her previous employer realized that it was a tremendous loss to their organization and wooed her back in ways that we're unable to woo in public education. And she will certainly be missed. She made a tremendous contribution in the short time that she was here, but we absolutely wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ms.
very
Jones.
much.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Jones.
you.
Thank you so much for all your work. Appreciate it.
Nice work, Ms. Jones.
Not hard to say.
Trustee Corcoran?
I want to thank you personally for understanding my misunderstanding of finances, but thank you for having the patience with me and explaining to me some of the things that I didn't know. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there's nothing else to come before the board, I will ask for unanimous consent to adjourn.
The meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting will be November 8th.
Okay, thank you. We do have a
We have
special meeting, a closed session scheduled for November 1st at
We don't
6
know for
o'clock.
certain yet. We don't know for certain yet.
We as a board voted to, did state that we are going to meet November 1st. Are you able to join us, Ms. Lunkins?
Yes. but we don't
Okay.
know if the attorney can join us. We'll know
Yes,
until
so
you get
he
back with us.
gave that as one of his dates, so.
Okay, so
we're-
our next meeting will be November 1st, and then after that, the meeting will be November 8th.
All right. And if there is no objection, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:07. Thank you, everyone.